Earth had never been truly alone in the universe. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, unexpected and impossible to ignore. A signal, clearly artificial, broadcast in mathematical patterns that suggested intelligence. Within hours, the best minds on the planet had confirmed what everyone suspected: first contact. The message contained coordinates for a meeting and instructions for reaching a space station positioned at the edge of the solar system. It was signed by something calling itself the Galactic Concord, a coalition of 27 spacefaring species. Major Frank Holden sat in a sterile conference room at NASA headquarters, scanning the files of the team he would lead. At 52, with silver streaks in his dark hair and deep lines around his eyes, he had spent 30 years in diplomatic service. None of those experiences had prepared him for this. "You have questions," said General Rivera, watching him from across the table. "Several hundred," Frank replied, closing the folder. "But mainly, why me?" "Because you've negotiated peace between people who actively wanted to kill each other," Rivera said. "And you never lost your temper once." Frank nodded. His reputation for calm under pressure was well earned. "When do we leave?" 4 days, just enough time to brief your team and prepare." The ship they traveled in was hastily modified from an experimental military vessel. The 6-person crew included scientists, linguists, and military personnel. Lissa Blackwell, a sharp-eyed lieutenant with a background in game theory, served as Frank's second-in-command. "We're approaching the coordinates," the pilot announced after 3 weeks of travel. Frank moved to the viewport and caught his breath. The space station hung against the darkness like an elaborate glass sculpture, its translucent surfaces revealing dozens of ships docked within. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Natalie Wilson, the team's cynobiologist. "And intimidating," added Commander Steve Brooks, their security officer. Their small craft docked at a designated port. Frank addressed the team one final time. "Remember, we represent all humanity. Stay calm, stay observant, and follow protocols." The airlock cycled open to reveal 3 waiting figures. The aliens stood taller than humans, with slender bodies covered in iridescent scales. Their eyes, 4 per face, blinked independently. "Greetings," said the central figure, its voice translated through a device at its throat. "I am Ambassador Zexala of the Vordari, welcoming Earth to the Galactic Concord." Frank stepped forward. "Major Frank Holden, representing Earth. We are honored by your invitation." The station's central chamber overwhelmed the human senses. Representatives from 27 species gathered in tiered seating, their forms varying wildly, some gaseous, others crystalline, many beyond easy description. A massive being with what looked like tentacles of light addressed the assembly. "The Concord recognizes Earth's delegation. Let the introductory council begin." Over the next 3 days, the humans learned about the complex structure of galactic society. The Concord operated on strict hierarchies based on technological development, resource control, and time since achieving spaceflight. "Your species has developed quickly," noted Zexala during a private meeting. "From radio to interplanetary travel in less than 2 centuries. Most take 5 times longer." "Humans adapt," Frank explained. "It's our greatest strength." "Perhaps," the alien replied, its tone unreadable. On the 4th day, Frank noticed the pattern. During formal sessions, certain species always deferred to others. When he asked about resource distribution, several representatives exchanged glances before answering vaguely. That evening, Lisa approached him in their quarters. "Major, I've been analyzing the interaction patterns. There's something they're not telling us." Frank nodded. "I've noticed. Their unity seems forced. And the questions about our military capabilities were oddly specific." Frank stared out at the stars beyond their window. "Tomorrow, we'll start asking harder questions. I want to know what the Galactic Concord really wants from Earth." As he prepared for sleep, Frank couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was being evaluated, and that failing this test might have consequences none of them were prepared for. Frank entered the Grand Council chamber with his team carefully arranged behind him. 3 days of preliminary talks had built to this moment, the formal presentation of Earth's membership terms. The chamber hummed with the sounds of 27 species communicating in their native tongues, all translated through small devices each delegate wore. The massive being of light, identified as High Counselor Varn of the Elysians, called for silence. The Concord extends its proposed terms of membership to the representatives of Earth, Varn announced, its voice resonating through the chamber. A holographic document appeared before Frank. As he read through it, his expression remained neutral despite the growing concern he felt. The terms were not what he had expected. Earth would be classified as a Category 7 civilization, near the bottom of the hierarchy. Humans would be restricted to their solar system except with special permits. Earth would need to provide raw materials according to quotas set by the Concord. Most troubling, Earth would have only a fractional vote in Concord decisions. These terms seem restrictive, Frank said carefully. They are standard for emerging species, replied Ambassador Zexla. For your protection and ours. Protection from what, exactly? Frank asked. A ripple of discomfort moved through the assembly. A bulbous creature with multiple eye stalks spoke next. New species must be integrated gradually. It is the way. Frank noticed Lisa silently signaling him. He called for a brief recess, which was reluctantly granted. In their private chamber, Lisa activated a series of jamming devices. Major, while you were in discussions, I accessed their information network. Look at this. She displayed a document on her tablet. Though partially translated, its meaning was clear. Humans have been classified as potentially dangerous, with notes about their concerning rate of weapon development and aggressive expansion tendencies. Frank's jaw tightened. They've already decided what we are. There's more, Lisa continued. The resource quotas would strip Earth of rare minerals within 50 years. And these population control measures buried in subsection 42. They want to limit our growth, Frank said quietly. When negotiations resumed, Frank attempted to address these concerns. We propose modifications to these terms. Earth cannot accept restrictions on our development or excessive resource quotas. The alien representatives exchanged glances. A small bird-like creature spoke up. The terms are standard, human. All members began with similar restrictions. But not all members face the same restrictions now, do they? Frank countered. We've observed considerable inequality among Concord species. This caused immediate tension. The chamber filled with multilingual chatter until Varn silenced them with a gesture. Perhaps, offered Ambassador Zexla, we could adjust the resource quotas by 5%. Frank spent the next 4 hours attempting to negotiate better terms, but met unified resistance on every significant point. The aliens would not budge on travel restrictions, voting rights, or Earth's classification. That night, as the team gathered in their quarters, Commander Brooks voiced what everyone was thinking. They've already decided to keep us contained. The question is why? Dr. Wilson added. Is it really fear of our potential aggression, or something else? Frank paced the room. We need more information before committing Earth to anything. He activated their secure communication link to Earth. I'm requesting time to consult with our governments. The next morning, Frank informed the Concord Council of Earth's request for a 48-hour consultation period. The aliens reluctantly agreed, but Frank noticed several representatives speaking urgently among themselves. As they left the chamber, Lisa leaned close to Frank. I've slipped trackers into their communication system. Let's see what they say when they think we're not listening. Frank nodded grimly. I suspect we won't like what we hear. Back in their quarters, Frank stared at the distant stars. The galaxy had opened to humanity, but with a door barely ajar and heavily guarded. Something would have to change. Alan Murphy had spent 15 years in intelligence work, but nothing compared to his current assignment. While Frank's team negotiated on the space station, Alan led a small group analyzing everything the aliens had shared and what they hadn't. Major Holden, secure line established, his assistant called from across the makeshift command center on Earth. Alan watched as Frank's face appeared on screen. The connection encrypted with systems developed specifically for this mission. "We've made a discovery," Alan said without preamble. "The linguistic patterns in their historical archives don't match. There are inconsistencies that suggest they've been edited." Frank frowned. "Edited how?" "References to Earth appear in records dating back nearly 800 years. They've been watching us, Frank, long before we had any idea they existed." Frank absorbed this information silently. "That explains some things." Lisa intercepted communications between the Vordari and another species called the Teldarens. They specifically mentioned human aggressive advancement as a concern. Ellen nodded. "There's more. Dr. Grant has been analyzing biological data they provided as part of their medical exchange. Can she join us?" Dr. Olivia Grant appeared on screen moments later. With tired eyes and disheveled brown hair, she looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Major Holden, I've identified gene sequences in their biological research that are specifically targeted at human DNA," she said. "They're developing weapons that would affect only humans, leaving other species unharmed." Frank's expression hardened. "Are you certain?" "Absolutely," she replied. "These aren't medical treatments. They're tailored bioweapons, very advanced ones." The silence that followed felt heavy with implication. "What's our play here, Alan?" Frank finally asked. "Earth's leadership is divided," Alan admitted. "Some want to withdraw immediately. Others think we should pretend to accept their terms while building our defenses." "And what do you think?" "I think we need more time and more information. If we walk away now, we might provoke them. If we appear too weak, they might decide we're easy targets." Frank nodded. "My team has detected increasing anxiety among the Concord members. Several species seem uncomfortable with how we're being treated, but they're following the lead of the dominant groups." Alan leaned forward. "Use that. Find the fractures in their unity. Meanwhile, we're activating contingency plans here." "What kind of contingencies?" Frank asked. "The kind we hope we never need," Alan replied grimly. "Military preparations, hidden bunkers, distributed manufacturing. If they decide to move against us, we won't be defenseless." Dr. Grant spoke up. "I've also been working on countermeasures for their bioweapons. Early stages, but promising." Frank considered this information. "We need to keep negotiating while you prepare. I'll push for better terms but avoid a complete breakdown." "Agreed," said Alan. "The President has authorized you to use your judgment, but be careful. We're dealing with civilizations thousands of years more advanced than ours." After the call ended, Frank briefed his team. Lisa seemed troubled. "If they've been watching us for centuries, why contact us now?" she asked. Commander Brooks answered before Frank could. "Because we're getting close to developing technology that would let us detect them. They want to control our development before we become a real threat." Dr. Wilson shook her head. "Or before we become equals." Frank stood at the viewport, staring at the alien ships docked around the station. "Tomorrow, we go back to the table with new questions. Let's see how they handle being the ones under scrutiny." That night, as the station's artificial day cycle dimmed to simulate night, Lisa's tracking programs recorded a surge in communication between Concord species. Something had changed. The aliens were nervous, and nervous entities made mistakes. Frank reviewed their strategy one last time before resting. Tomorrow would determine whether humanity would join the galactic community as partners or face them as adversaries. The Grand Council chamber seemed smaller today. Frank felt the weight of Earth's future on his shoulders as he led his team to their designated seats. The alien representatives watched them with what he now recognized as apprehension rather than curiosity. High Counselor Varn's luminous form pulsed brightly. "Has Earth reached a decision regarding our generous membership terms?" Frank stood, his posture straight and confident. "We have additional questions before we can proceed." A low murmur spread through the chamber. This was not the expected response. Questions have been answered extensively, said Ambassador Zexla, scales shifting color slightly. Delays serve no purpose. On the contrary, Frank replied evenly. Several critical matters remain unclear. For instance, why does the Concorde maintain historical records of Earth dating back 8 centuries? The chamber went silent. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A small, insect-like being Frank hadn't heard speak before chittered rapidly to Varn. A High Counselor's light dimmed momentarily. Observation of pre-contact species is standard procedure, Varn answered finally. Nothing sinister. And what about the bioweapons specifically designed to target human DNA? Lisa asked, standing beside Frank. Is that also standard procedure? The reaction was immediate. Many representatives began speaking at once, some angrily, others defensively. Frank noted which species seemed genuinely surprised by this information. Zexla rose. These are baseless accusations. The human delegation misunderstands scientific research exchanged in good faith. We understand perfectly, Frank countered. Our scientists have analyzed the data. These are weapons, not medical treatments. A tall, gray-skinned delegate with 6 limbs moved forward. The humans exaggerate. Some species simply require insurance policies when dealing with unknown factors. Unknown? Frank raised an eyebrow. You've been watching us for centuries. We're hardly unknown. The debate grew heated. Frank carefully guided the conversation, revealing more of what they had discovered without exposing their sources. Throughout the exchange, he noted which representatives seemed sympathetic to Earth's concerns. Then came the breaking point. A round, floating creature with multiple appendages, introduced earlier as Delegate Nuplex of the Orvidian Collective, became increasingly agitated during the discussion. Why waste time with these primitives? Nuplex burst out. Their population growth alone makes them dangerous. The containment protocols and breeding restrictions are necessary. The chamber fell silent. This was information that had not been included in the official terms. Breeding restrictions. Frank's voice was dangerously quiet. You plan to limit human population growth without our knowledge or consent. Varn's light pulsed rapidly, clearly signaling the Orvidian to be silent. But the damage was done. A misunderstanding. Zexla attempted to recover. Delegate Nuplex refers to standard development guidelines that all. No more lies, Frank interrupted. He turned slowly, making eye contact with representatives from every species. For days we've negotiated in good faith while you concealed your true intentions. You've monitored our planet without consent, developed weapons against us, and planned to restrict our growth while extracting our resources. He paused, letting his words sink in. Several of the smaller delegations looked away. Humanity came here hoping to join a community of equals. Instead, we found would-be masters. Frank's voice remained calm but carried throughout the chamber. Earth rejects these terms. Earth rejects any relationship built on deception. Varn's light flared. You cannot simply reject. We can, and we do, Frank declared. Humanity formally abandons these negotiations. He signaled to his team, who stood as one. The chamber erupted in chaos as Frank delivered his final statement. Earth will determine its own destiny. Any future contact must acknowledge our sovereignty and right to self-determination. Until then, this discussion is over. As they walked out, Lisa whispered, "What now?" "Now," Frank replied quietly, "we prepare for their response." Behind them, the Galactic Concorde faced something they hadn't encountered in centuries, a species that refused to be controlled. The galaxy watched in growing terror as humans abandoned the table, leaving uncertainty where there had always been order. The journey back to Earth was tense. Frank's team spent most of the trip analyzing data they had collected and preparing reports. Earth needed to be ready for whatever came next. Their arrival caused immediate global reaction. News of humanity's withdrawal from galactic negotiations dominated every discussion. Some praised Frank's decision. Others feared he had doomed them all. "We need time," Frank told the hastily assembled Security Council. "The Concorde won't act immediately. They operate by consensus, and that takes time." "How much time?" asked the Secretary General. "Months, perhaps a year," Frank replied. "They'll debate, argue, and try to reach us through diplomatic channels first." Captain Kate Warren stood at the back of the room. At 41, she had commanded experimental aircraft and spacecraft with equal skill. Now she led Earth's most critical defense initiative. "Project Phantom is ahead of schedule," she reported when called upon. "The stealth technology works. Our test vessels are completely invisible to the detection systems we recovered from the Concorde database." "How many vessels can we equip?" a general asked. 12 within 6 months, Kate answered. "But we're focusing on defensive systems for Earth first." Frank nodded approvingly. To the Concorde, it would appear that Earth had gone silent, turned inward after the failed negotiations. This was exactly what they wanted the aliens to think. In reality, humanity prepared with quiet determination. Manufacturing centers worldwide shifted production to components needed for defense systems. Scientists worked around the clock to understand and adapt alien technology. Military forces trained for scenarios once considered science fiction. Dr. Paul Davis led the communication team. Brilliant and slightly awkward, he had revolutionized Earth's understanding of Concorde transmission methods. "They're still trying to reach us," he reported 3 months after their return. Same message repeated on different frequencies. "They're offering reconsideration of terms." "Any signs they're monitoring our response?" Frank asked. Paul shook his head. "None that we can detect. Our communication blackout seems to be working." Earth maintained absolute silence in response to Concorde messages. No replies, no acknowledgments. Meanwhile, Paul's team developed systems to intercept and decode Concorde transmissions between their own ships and worlds. "They're confused by our silence," Paul explained during a briefing. "Some species argue for patience, others want immediate action to contain the human problem." Frank wasn't surprised. Which side is winning? The patient ones, for now. But that could change. Kate's defensive systems were deployed strategically around Earth and key positions throughout the solar system. Early warning detectors extended to the orbit of Pluto. Stealth ships patrolled silently, gathering intelligence and testing their capabilities. 6 months after abandoning negotiations, Earth intercepted a troubling transmission. "They've dispatched 3 warships," Paul announced grimly. "Official purpose is diplomatic re-engagement, but weapon systems are fully activated." Frank studied the projected course of the alien vessels. "How long until they reach us?" 2 weeks at their current speed. The next 14 days were the most intense of Earth's preparation. Kate's teams worked without rest to complete the defensive grid. Military forces worldwide moved to high alert, while civilians remained unaware of the approaching threat. "Should we warn the public?" asked the president during an emergency meeting. "Not yet," Frank advised. "If we need to evacuate, we will. But panic won't help us now." On the 13th day, Earth's long-range sensors detected the Concorde ships entering the outer solar system. "They're broadcasting a message," Paul reported. "Final opportunity for peaceful integration." Frank looked around the command center where humanity's best minds had gathered. After months of preparation, the moment of truth had arrived. "Are we ready?" he asked Kate. She nodded confidently. "Defense grid at full capacity. Phantom ships in position. We can do this." Frank took a deep breath. "Then it's time to show the Concorde that humanity won't be intimidated or controlled." He turned to Paul. "Send no response. Let them come to us." The 3 Concorde warships entered Earth's orbital space with arrogant confidence. Massive and gleaming, their hulls reflected sunlight as they positioned themselves in a triangle formation above the planet. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything humans had publicly displayed. From his position in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Frank watched their approach on screens displaying feed from hidden satellites. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," Paul reported. demanding immediate response and compliance with Concord directives. "Let them talk a little longer," Frank replied calmly. The alien message played through the speakers. "Attention, Earth government. Your period of isolation ends now. The Galactic Concord requires your immediate acceptance of membership terms. Failure to comply will result in necessary enforcement actions." Kate entered the command center, her uniform crisp despite days without proper rest. "Defense grid is fully operational. Phantom ships are in position, awaiting your order." Frank nodded. "Let's show them what we've been doing during our isolation." With a simple command, Kate activated Earth's defensive response. Across the solar system, previously invisible human ships suddenly appeared on Concord sensors. Not 3 or 4 vessels, but 37 strategically positioned craft surrounding the alien warships. On the main screen, they watched the Concord vessels react, changing formation and powering weapons. "They're charging main weapons systems," reported a monitoring officer. "Now," ordered Frank. Kate pressed a sequence on her control panel. The defense grid activated, sending precisely calibrated energy pulses toward the Concord ships. These weren't designed to destroy, but to disable. The effect was immediate. The warship's lights flickered, their engines sputtered, and their weapon systems went offline. The massive vessels drifted helplessly in orbit. "Phase 1 complete," Kate announced. "All 3 vessels successfully disabled." Frank turned to Lieutenant Commander Greg Bennett, who stood ready with his team of 6. All wore newly developed space combat suits based on Concord designs. "You're up," Frank told him. Greg nodded firmly. "We'll get it done." Within minutes, 2 stealth ships transported Greg's team to the largest Concord vessel. Using boarding techniques developed over months of training, they entered through an emergency airlock. From the command center, Frank watched through cameras mounted on their helmets. The team moved efficiently through the alien corridors, encountering minimal resistance. Most of the Concord crew seemed shocked by the sudden reversal of power. "Main communication hub secured," Greg reported after 20 minutes. "Beginning data transfer now." This was the most critical part of the mission. While Earth had disabled the ships, the real objective was information. Greg's team connected devices developed by Paul's team, bypassing alien security and extracting massive amounts of data. "We're also broadcasting the prepared message to all Concord frequencies," Greg added. Across the galaxy, Concord communication systems received Earth's message. It contained evidence of the deception practiced against humans, including the bioweapon research, planned population controls, and exploitative resource demands. Most importantly, it revealed how the dominant Concord species manipulated newer civilizations, keeping them subordinate while claiming to offer protection and partnership. "Reaction from the other ships?" Frank asked. "They're requesting communication," Paul replied. "The captain of the lead vessel wants to speak with whoever is in charge." Frank straightened his uniform. "Put them through." The screen revealed a Vordari commander, scales shifting between purple and blue in what they now knew indicated extreme distress. "This action violates all Concord protocols," the alien began. "Your presence in our system violated Earth's sovereignty," Frank countered. "We responded accordingly." "The Concord will not." "The Concord is already changing," Frank interrupted. "Your ships remain functional enough for life support and communication. Check your incoming transmissions." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as reports came in. 5 smaller Concord species had already reached out to Earth directly, expressing interest in new relationships outside traditional Concord structures. "This is unprecedented," the commander admitted finally. "No," Frank replied. "This is evolution. The galaxy is changing, starting today." As Greg's team returned with their valuable data, Earth's position had transformed from isolated rebel to catalyst for galactic change. The Galactic Concord held emergency sessions for 60 days straight. Reports from their ambassadors described unprecedented chaos. 5 species, the Novelli, Zentari, Rulin, Kesh, and Morphelians, had formally broken from Concord authority and established direct treaties with Earth. Frank stood aboard the newly commissioned vessel Aurora, watching Earth grow smaller as they departed for the neutral space station, where it all began 1 year earlier. The ship represented humanity's new reality, built with both Earth technology and adapted alien systems. "Still feels strange," said Lisa, now promoted to captain. "Returning to that station under such different circumstances." Frank nodded. "They never expected us to come back on our terms." Earth had transformed in the past year. With knowledge extracted from the Concord ships, human technology had advanced dramatically. More importantly, humanity had maintained its independence while establishing new alliances. The 5 allied species had their own reasons for joining with Earth. All had suffered under Concord restrictions, treated as lesser members despite centuries of loyal participation. Earth's defiance had shown them another path was possible. "Approaching the station," announced the pilot. The same transparent structure hung in space, but now it seemed less impressive, less intimidating. Frank noticed fewer ships docked at its ports, evidence of the Concord's weakened position. As they docked, Frank addressed his expanded team. Along with the original human delegation, representatives from Earth's 5 alien allies stood ready. "Remember, we're not here to destroy the Concord," Frank told them. "We're here to transform it." Ambassador Krell of the Novalis nodded, their crystalline body reflecting light in complex patterns. "Many species still fear change. We must show them a better way." The delegation entered the central chamber where representatives from the remaining Concord species waited. High Counselor Varn's light seemed dimmer than before. "Earth returns with allies," Varn observed. "An unexpected development." "Not unexpected," Frank replied. "Inevitable. Systems that oppress eventually face resistance." The Zentari representative, a being of swirling gases contained in a mechanical shell, moved forward. "For 800 years, my people have contributed resources while receiving minimal benefits. Earth showed us this was not the natural order." Frank presented the new proposal that Earth and its allies had developed. Not a replacement for the Concord, but a transformation. A galactic federation built on mutual respect rather than hierarchy. "Member worlds maintain autonomy while sharing knowledge and resources equally," he explained. "No species commands another. No civilization is valued above others." "Impossible," declared Ambassador Zexela. "Order requires structure. Some must lead, others must follow." "We disagree," Frank said simply. "And increasingly, so do others." Over the next 3 days, the chamber witnessed intense debate. More species began to question the old order. Frank noted with satisfaction that even some traditionally dominant species showed interest in the new approach. On the final day, a pivotal moment arrived when the Teldarans, once among the most vocal critics of humanity, publicly abandoned their opposition. "We have reviewed Earth's proposed federation structure," their representative announced. "It offers genuine innovation in interstellar governance. We withdraw our objection." By day's end, 17 species had expressed interest in the new federation. The Concord, while not dissolved, had effectively lost its monopoly on galactic politics. As the session concluded, Varn approached Frank privately. "You have changed the course of galactic civilization." "Not me," Frank replied. "Humanity did this by refusing to accept unjust terms." "Was that wisdom or recklessness?" Varn asked. Frank smiled slightly, perhaps a bit of both. That's what makes humans interesting. Later, as the Aurora departed the station, Frank watched new ships arriving, representatives from worlds seeking to join the emerging federation. "What happens now?" Lisa asked, standing beside him at the viewport. "Now we build something better," Frank replied. "A galaxy where leaving the table isn't necessary because everyone has a voice." Earth had not conquered the stars through military might, as the Concord had feared. Instead, humans had done something far more revolutionary. They had changed the rules of a game rigged against them. And the galaxy, after its initial terror, was beginning to see the beauty in that change. 5 years had passed since the formation of the Galactic Federation. Earth had changed in ways few could have imagined before first contact. Cities now featured buildings with alien architectural influences. People from different worlds walked streets alongside humans, sharing knowledge and culture. Frank stood on the observation deck of the new Federation headquarters, built in orbit above Earth. At 61, his hair had turned completely silver, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. From here, he could see both his home planet and the stars that now seemed much closer. "Admiring the view again?" asked Lisa as she joined him. Now Admiral Blackwell, she commanded Earth's growing fleet of exploration vessels. "Never gets old," Frank replied. "Did you see the latest reports from the Centauri expedition?" Lisa nodded. "They've discovered 3 more pre-spaceflight civilizations in the Andromeda sector, all being observed under the new protocols." The Federation had established strict rules about contact with developing worlds. No interference, no exploitation, and absolutely no secret monitoring. When a species developed faster than light travel, they would be welcomed openly, with full disclosure of Federation history and structure. "The council meeting starts in 10 minutes, Lisa reminded him. Frank nodded. As Earth's representative on the Federation Council, his schedule remained busy even years after the initial diplomatic crisis. The council chamber displayed how much had changed. 34 species now participated in the Federation, with another 5 maintaining observer status. The circular arrangement ensured no position seemed more important than others. "The meeting is called to order," announced Krell, who served as this quarter's council chair. Leadership rotated regularly among all member species. Today's agenda focused on the ongoing tensions with the remaining Concord loyalists. While most species had joined the Federation, a small coalition of formerly dominant worlds refused to accept the new galactic order. "Their fleet movements near the Kesh homeworld are concerning," reported a Morphelian representative. "They appear to be testing our defensive perimeter." Greg Bennett, now commander of Federation security, displayed tactical data on the main screen. "They're pushing boundaries, but careful not to cross them. They know we can respond if provoked. And yet diplomacy remains our first priority," Frank added. Ambassador Chen reports progress in the latest talks. The discussion continued for hours, with each species offering perspective. This was the Federation's greatest strength, combining diverse viewpoints to reach balanced decisions. After the meeting, Frank returned to his office to find Dr. Paul Davis waiting for him. Paul now led the Federation's Communication Technology Division, developing systems that allowed vastly different species to interact effectively. "We've had a breakthrough," Paul said excitedly. "The translation algorithm can now process Telexian multidimensional language in real time." "That's incredible," Frank replied. "The Telexians have been reluctant to join because of communication barriers." "Exactly. This could bring the 35th species into the Federation." Later that evening, Frank attended a celebration marking the 5th anniversary of the Federation's founding. Representatives from all member worlds gathered in the Grand Hall, a testament to how far they had come. Kate Warren, who had been instrumental in Earth's defense and now oversaw technology exchange programs, raised a glass. "To leaving the table," she said with a smile. "And building a better one," Frank added. As the celebration continued, Frank stepped away briefly to look out at the stars. He remembered the fear and uncertainty of those early days, when humanity faced a hostile galaxy alone. Now those same stars represented opportunity and connection. A young diplomat approached him. "Sir, the Novali ambassador would like to discuss the education exchange program." Frank nodded and turned from the viewport. The work never ended, but that was fine with him. Humanity had found its place among the stars not by conquering or submitting, but by changing the conversation. The galaxy that had once watched in terror now looked to Earth with hope, proof that sometimes walking away from a bad deal was the first step toward building something truly great.